All right, we are live. For some reason, Restream wants us to use portrait mode. I think it's more popular now, isn't it? I don't know, but I want to thank Sharon Abbott for being a guest speaker on the Troy Show, and I always like interviewing interesting people or talk about interesting things. And I met Sharon at a networking event. Was it the Pathium? Pathium?
It was Pantheon, yes.
Pantheon. Okay. And it was a very interesting thing. And I didn't know it at the time, but Sharon knew a lot more about sales than I did. So she was a sales expert. So we had a meeting and she was giving me some great suggestions. So I build sales systems for clients and B2B coaches, consultants, salespeople, and I'm really good at building those things. But I'm not an expert at the actual sales portion. And so she gave me some great advice, and she was telling me about her cause. So I figured she is actually helping humans. So she went from a sales professional to actually helping getting kids off the street. And I thought this was a great cause, and I wanted to really talk to her about maybe her sales experience, how she converted to that, what she's doing to really help other individuals. And I know I'm a super nerd, so I'll talk about technical stuff. I asked Sharon earlier if she used Scoop. Scoop is our SaaS, our video sales software. She said no. so I'll so
So what is Scoop? What does Scoop do for people?
Well, Scoop is a product. It's a Chrome extension that fits on top of your browser, and it does a few things really well. So I'm all about creating solutions or solving problems. And on LinkedIn, I noticed that I was getting a lot more spam on the LinkedIn DMs, like a lot of spam. And then everyone had these bot messages and automation and all that. And I understand the importance of having a little bit of volume, but if you're not going to take the time, I don't want to talk to you. And so I don't care about people selling me. I care about building relationships, because if I ever give you my money for, or we partner for anything, if we put effort into something, I want to know that you're actually a real person. I like you and I trust you. So it's like a no like trust factor.
Exactly.
And so how do I convert those messages into a vetted book meeting? And so we came out with Scoop. That's SKOOP, and the website is skoopapp.com. It's scoopapp.com, and it does instant video. So that's the first part of it. So if you connect with someone on LinkedIn to do business with, or to network with, or to partner with, you want to spend time for that person, because usually those are high value relationships. So say you and I just connected, right? And we didn't have any other, conversations other than maybe you engage with my content. We have some idea. We met somewhere. I send a connection request and you accept. Well, the first thing you don't want to do is get an automated message. So if you do get a message, you tend to want to wait about, a day or two, and then personalize that interaction. And so what Scoop allows you to do is it stores messages, and you can click a button, it'll drop the welcome message in it. You can make a change, and then you can do a 30-second up to, I think it's up to a couple of minutes, but usually 30 seconds to 60 seconds convert really well. And so if you do a welcome video, a little bit of text, a welcome video, and you can title it on the bottom with their name on it. By doing that, you convert about 6 times better. So
Amazing.
think about this. Yeah. If you get about 10 connections a day. So if you have a system going on, you should be able to get 5 out and 5 in. 5 out to the system, 5 people usually want to connect with you. So that's 10 on average, right? And if you set everything up right, you get around that. If you convert a lot better on vetted book meetings, not just random tire kickers, people that actually want to talk to you, you get much closer to your goal. So I was getting at first 3% conversion rate to a vetted book meeting, not a response, not a thanks, but to a vetted book meeting. That means they decided they wanted to talk to me for a very particular reason. And I moved that 3%. And then with Scoop, we moved it to 21%. That means,
Wow.
yeah, that's huge. So
Yeah,
that means that you, out of 10 people connecting, you more than likely have 2 or 3 meetings extra that are vetted a day. So if you had 10 good meetings a week, I think you could end up doing some business. And that was the concept. And
that's
so,
great. Yeah,
yeah, and so that's the video portion. And it also has AI for content creation. So the 2 places that make money on LinkedIn and to do business is your content and your direct messages. That's the majority of all business that happens on LinkedIn. And the problem with the DMs were that people weren't taking the time to get to know the other person and talk to them and support them. And so Scoop solves a lot of that issue. It can work with the systems or without. Now, the content portion, people love doing their selfies and videos and all that stuff with their phone, and they like using Canva and creating PDFs is great. But we found out that the biggest obstacle is in writing the content, the written portion. So they have all the stuff, but they don't know how to organize the information well. And so Scoop has an AI that scans your whole profile and creates a disc analysis. You know what the disc is for the
sure.
personality. Yeah.
Yeah,
And so it understands your writing style, and it also absorbs your last like dozen posts, and it updates itself every 30 days. And so it has an understanding of your knowledge base. So you can create content, a post with a single button, you know. Don't want to make this too much about Scoop. I'm just a Scoop fanatic because I invented it, and it is actually the sponsor of this live. But let's move on with that. If you're interested in Scoop, feel free to just connect with me and just ask for it, and I'll give you a link to it, or you can just do a free trial and then book some time with me.
fantastic.
I'll get you set up. I'll give you a link
Fantastic.
later on, Sharon. So I appreciate it. But
Okay,
anyway,
great.
I'll stop blabbing. Tell me about your sales career. And you sound like you're really good. You got some great advice last time we talked. And then why do you stop that to do and to transition and explain that transition? And then on what you're doing now and how it's helping people and humans grow up and all the good things that get kids off the street.
Thank you. My sales career was not by choice.
Mm,
Um, of course, I could have walked away, but in 1980, I had been working for a company for 2 years and had traveled 5 states a week, drove 1,000 miles, installed 5 systems in typesetting in newspapers, print shops, corporations, and I got this thing that they call travel fever. I woke up one day in Denver and I had no idea where I was or where I was supposed to be. And it's just a burnout. And so when I came back, I was going to leave the company. And instead, they talked me into going into sales. And I didn't like salespeople because I thought they were kind of pushy. Their personalities were very extrovert, and very, a little too close to you kind of thing. And
like
so I
breathing on your neck type of.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was
Yeah,
like,
I don't
oh.
like that either. I don't ever believe in selling. I believe in creating a buying environment.
Well, when you provide something that somebody needs, it's not selling to them, it's providing a service that they need or a product that they need. And
Mhm.
that's where I finally twisted the sales around. I worked in the Fortune 500 company in the Bay Area. I had from Market Street down to Lockheed Martin, which was close to San Jose area,
Mm.
and every Fortune 500 company in that area. And what I found is that I could relate to people's situation because I had been on their side of the desk. And
Mhm.
I knew how to provide something that would make their life less chaotic, more productive, make them look better in their position. And that's what I focused on. I didn't
Mm,
sell the equipment like every other salesperson in the company was told, sell the 7500 because we've got 1500 of them and we've got to get them out of the floor before the end of the year. I
mm,
didn't do that. I
mm,
sold to what they needed rather than what the company was dictating. And then about 3 years into it, I realized that people who are in specific positions have specific personalities. So, an amiable personality is generally someone of service, right?
mm.
And they want everybody to be happy. They want their whole life to be balanced. And then people who are
Is there
drivers
such
of the
a thing?
decision. Pardon?
Is there such a thing as balance?
Absolutely.
Really?
Yeah,
I don't believe
absolutely.
that at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, absolutely. You'll find that amiables, they will be so disrupted. Like if you ever known anybody with ADD, like severe ADD, and
Uh-huh.
you interrupt their pattern, that's what an amiable feels like when their life isn't balanced. So they want everybody to be happy, which is impossible.
Mm,
But they can make a decision based on the majority of the people being happy.
mm.
Whereas a driver is just looking at bottom line. How do we become more productive, more profitable? They know that if you lay off a certain number of employees, you'll reduce your payroll, but you'll also reduce your ability to generate income.
Oh, so
So
those
they
are more
have a better
analytical. The drivers are a little more analytical.
Yeah, not really. So the analytical, so the driver kind of sees it from all sides, but
Mm,
the analytical is the person who, like you, when you're developing an app, that's an analytical, a CPA.
yeah,
I remember I was telling you the flatness of your forehead here is strictly analytical. So
yeah,
you see things in logic, and then
yeah.
the people who are the expressives, they're generally like the public speakers, actors, people who love attention. They're broad expressions physically. And so I started recognizing how they spoke, and
Mm,
I started adapting my conversation to make them comfortable. And
mhm.
I ended up with one of the highest ratios in sales in this Fortune 500 company. I was always in the top 10 out of 300 people nationally. And it was because I talked to people in their comfort zone.
Mhm.
Then I went
That's
into
gotta
my
be
own.
really difficult for a lot of people. So that's actually a superpower. It's very hard for me to change my. I can change tactics, but to appear different than how I am is very difficult because I'm a straight shooter. And I have this, like you said, this big flat head, analytical head. Matter of fact, I have such a big forehead. I think it's an 8 head, you know. So,
No, no, no.
but,
No,
but
it's not so much, that you have to change, but
uh-huh.
imagine if you're talking to somebody in their comfort zone
Hmm.
rather than your comfort zone. So if you're talking to someone as an analytical, you're explaining details and logic, and if they're an amiable, that just goes way over their head. It's like
True.
being underwater, right?
Mm.
So if you come down to the level of sales of with an amiable, I know you want everyone to be happy. And with this app, this is how we're going to make them happy. You're not changing your approach, your sales tactics. You're changing the way you're presenting it to make them comfortable.
Yeah, that would be a great way of teaching how to uh, build relationships in sales. Because
Absolutely.
I'll be honest with you, I'm very good at a lot of stuff. I'm not good at that because I'll come to someone, and I had like a great meeting today, and as a client, he'll jump on board probably on Monday. Um, they come to me with the problem, and I just tell them, I said, okay, so this is what's going on. I said, this is probably what you need to do to solve that problem. And a lot of them are really, gun ho about it, but some of them they don't like the answer, and so they don't like that. It's not the fact they don't like my answer, but they don't. They have a hard time comprehending because it didn't come from their own mind, or they don't think it came from their own mind. And so understanding how to weave the conversation where it's more receivable would be a major impact on anyone's ability to, I guess, speak, to sell, to build relationships, I would think.
You know, it's so
Was it
interesting
what
to me.
amiable? Was that first
Amiable. So a person
amiable?
who is amiable, they're balanced.
So
So
amiable, and then there is
e-
the
the expressive,
expressive
and then there's the driver
driver,
and the analytical.
analytical. Okay,
Yeah,
so I have majority on that side, huh?
right, right. Yeah.
I'm at
Now,
least 80% on that side.
so my 10th book is called About Face Traits Tell Tales. And I combined those four types of personalities with recognizing what's going on with your face.
Mm-hmm.
So your nose is round at the end, which means you enjoy hearing stories, especially if they're good news stories.
Yeah, everyone
Your
likes good
bottom,
news, though. I think everyone likes good news. Come on.
no, but other people, there are people with a pointy nose, right? You get to the point. They're showing you right there on their face. Get to the point. Don't bore them with the details. Just
Mm,
go right into what they need to know to make a decision. They might also have a pointy chin.
mm-hmm.
Your chin is rounded, but it's got a tiny little bit of flat to it. You see that?
Yeah, it's kind of like, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And then it goes up. So that flatness is you're almost moving into a driver. And most people don't recognize that your face changes as you change your personality and your traits.
Oh, I guess the only way you would like mess up would be if they had plastic surgery or something.
That's possible. But see, this is called the film, PHELM. And I can put my index finger under my nose and you can still see skin
Hmm.
above my lip, right?
Yeah,
Yours is just
mine's a little
barely,
bit.
barely, barely. Right.
Yeah, you have
So
more.
if you look at a picture from me 30 years ago, I had no skin showing at all, less than you.
Hmm.
That is a level of self-confidence. So over the last 30 years, having my own business, being in sales, doing all these things, my face has changed to project the level of self-confidence that I
Oh,
have.
this means you have more confidence than me.
Yes, yes, right. But my
I
knowledge
believe
base
that.
and my age would absolutely, I would hope, that I would have developed skills
Some
and
wisdom
created
throughout the
things.
years. Yeah,
Yes, yes,
yeah.
exactly. So when you look at the lips, right? So the bottom lip is your ability to articulate, to
Mhm.
speak, to get people to understand what it is you're trying to help them with. The upper lip is your ability to listen. Your bottom lip is almost twice as big as your upper lip. So your ability to be able to hear what other people are saying isn't as strong as your ability to be able to deliver the information of what they need.
Oh, you're giving a analysis of me because that sounds a
Yes,
lot like me.
yes,
Yeah, that's about right.
right.
I'm
So
more of a deliverable, and yeah, one of my probably negative traits is that I think too quickly for a lot of people. So usually I will know the answer before they even know the question, and it's very disrupting for the other person because they don't think most people can't see it in their mind and break it
process.
apart. Yeah,
They
process.
can't process it, right?
Yeah.
So when you look at someone's face and you recognize their ability to take in information, whether they're analytical, whether they're a driver, and they just get to the bottom line. Don't bore me with the details. Just get to the bottom line. That's a real squared off chin, right?
Mm.
There are people when you're directly in front of them and you look like you have kind of where I was years ago. If I put one finger in front of my eyeball, drop the second one down, you see the skin above the second finger and the eyebrow?
Yeah.
Do you see that? Right?
Yeah.
Right? You don't have any.
Yeah.
This used to be worse than yours.
Hmm.
Very, very little. I couldn't even see my eyebrow if I put the second finger It was like covering the eyebrow
Oh yeah,
completely.
that's because I'm half Asian.
No, it works in every nationality. So what that indicates is 30 years ago, if you came up to me and put your hand on my shoulder, or I actually had someone come up that I didn't know from behind and stroked my hair, and I freaked out. I mean, it was like, it was a reaction as bad as if somebody hit me.
That is kind
And
of weird to do, though. You're right.
it is weird. It is weird, but like in a grocery store, like somebody bumps me with their cart,
Uh-huh.
30 years ago, I would be really offended.
Oh,
Today, I just know they're not paying attention. So the more space you have between your eyeball and your eyebrow is an indication of how close in proximity people can get. So that
mhm.
6 foot rule, how close can you get inside that 6 foot rule? So if you're talking to somebody brand new and you're just for the first time meeting them, you don't put your hand on their shoulder. You don't do things that are touchy feely because
Yeah,
they
like
will
you
be
know each other.
offended.
Like you already are in a friendship
Right.
or relationship or something
Right.
like
And
that.
there's
Not
people
familiar with.
who are in sales that think that that's a way of endearing people to them, but it
Yeah,
does
it's a
just
little
the
offensive
opposite,
to a lot of people. Yes, it's
right?
actually
Does
offensive.
just the opposite. So the face has 125 clues
Hmm.
on how to communicate with people.
You can tell I didn't get any sleep last night, probably as well, right? But
You know what shows that is that your eyelids, see how my eyelids are very open
yeah.
and yours aren't?
Hmm.
That's because you didn't get enough sleep.
Yeah, yeah, I work a lot. So that is so true. That's so true. I'm gonna take a nap when I pick my daughter up from school. Like I don't
It's
care.
great. It's great. Who
I
cares?
open
It
the
happens
door. I said, "You
wonderful.
play there. You leave me alone." I put my timer. I'm just like,
Yeah, so I had a lot of fun, 20 years developing entrepreneur skills, sales training, writers training, being able to get people published so that they'd have a book. So when they have competition, if they're the only ones that have a book, they're the ones who actually get the business. And I've seen this over and over and over again. So I love helping people discover like where is their business passion? And not just I'm doing this business to make money. You can take any mundane business and find an area that lights a fire in you. And
hmm,
that is so important that people have passion in their life, that it's not just, oh, another Monday, another work week. I can't wait till Friday. That's wasting 5 days of your week. And you
yeah,
know that oddly enough, more heart attacks happen on Monday morning than 6.5 days of the week combined. And I
wow,
used to tell people you'd rather have your heart attack you on Monday than go to a job you hate.
yeah.
So start today and change that. You know,
You gotta
make
love.
sure that you're living your life on purpose.
Yeah, you have to live your life on purpose. And I know that as humans, people say if someone has like a mental illness or some problems or whatever, right? Depends on what degree. Well, you know what scares me? The people that are too happy. I think those are the crazy ones. You ever have someone that's super happy? I said, something's wrong.
I,
I
I'm
mean,
very familiar with somebody who pretends to be happy and
yeah, maybe
they're really quick to jump the gun on temper. So like raging,
oh,
yelling, and that's threatening to me because they don't have any clue on who they really are, and this
mm.
pretending to be happy, like going kind of person is a facade. And
But it's
until
to me,
people
it's very apparent that like like if I don't even date right. I'm a single father, just FYI, and so and I'm a little older than I look, and so I just things that used to be important when I was younger are not as important as like my peace, you know? And
Yeah,
so I see red flags real quick. And my problem is a lot of times I always date younger, right? And of course, I think that's normal for a man to kind of generally like younger, but um, I attract younger. That's the problem. And here in Vegas, a lot of people I bump into, they want like I don't want to say sugar daddy, but they want a fun person to go out in the middle.
Right.
I'm not that guy at all. I go to bed at like 9 o'clock. I don't. I hardly ever drink. I'm pretty normal. But so I have to be. But I see the red flags, and
Yes.
that's the
Yeah.
important thing. And a lot of people, they're super happy to. I was like, this person's way too happy. Something's wrong. Like, I think she might stab me or something. It's just
Yeah, not dealing with reality for sure.
yeah. So I always think that's a big red flag if they're like super happy all the time. And when people say I went through problems, I said that's actually a good thing. I think that's human to have.
Character building.
Yeah, and if you've gone through some trauma, I mean that's like um being tested by fire, because now you as a human know the other side. So
Right.
when you're dealing with people, you're a little more patient. Things that the experience that you learn, and some things you can't really know it until you've been through it. Like when I was younger, I'm a go getter, but I was a really big go getter before, and I did a lot of different things well where I could work like I was 10 people. And I never understood why everyone else was so freaking lazy. It just didn't make sense to me, right? I'm like,
I
and I
thoroughly
was
understand that.
no, but it just because it's my ignorance is that people work on different levels. But again, I was not great in relationships. I was great in process and getting stuff done. And I learned through the years, for example, I was a creative director at one place and they had a government division and a public. I was in charge of the public. I was told to talk to the government because the government division to do a IT project, and it was a commercial, website thing or whatever. And I couldn't understand everything they told me because it made no sense. And I said, "Yeah, this is like a 2 month project." And they're like, "We need 6 people, and this can take 3 months, and that can take 3 months." And I'm like, "So it's going to take you 9 months to get it?" And that didn't make any sense to me. And because I don't operate that way. And of course, government runs slower. They don't really do things the way I would do it. And I said, "This is a month and a half project. I don't understand why it takes so." And they kicked me out of the room. And they said, "Just do it yourself. Let's see how fast you get it done." Then I got it done in 2 weeks, and they never talked to me again. I learned my lesson that
Yeah.
being good at what you do makes no difference in building relationships
Well,
sometimes.
but the biggest lesson you learn is probably you don't belong working in a government environment.
Well, yes, yes, but but I still to this day I'm like, wow, they are so slow at what they're doing. I said, and
But
so
that's the job security. So that's a built
yes,
in,
that's what I
right?
learned. Yeah, they're
It,
worried about
and
job security.
yeah, yeah. I worked for California State University at Chico, and I found it really frustrating the amount of time people would take to do things, I walked away. It was like I can't
It's
work in
insanity for
environments
you,
like
isn't
that.
it?
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
insanity. Oh my goodness. Because you're used to saying, hey, this is the quality of work I do. These are checkpoints. You guys are not even looking at this. And if you don't look at this, these are the things that are going to go wrong. And why wouldn't you check this out? And they just like, they don't.
Well, and the real point for those of you who are listening, if you're not happy with your job, if your job isn't fulfilling, you can take a half an hour of your lunch break every day, excuse me, and focus on what can you do to change your job? What
Mhm.
can you do to start working on something that has heart? And that's where I came to 20 years ago. I decided that I was going to take all this experience, whatever it took, I was going to build a school for kids at risk. And so I found that everything I'd ever done in my life prepared me for this, which is
Mm.
miraculous, right? So I talk to people. I have 68 countries, 500 people coming to Belize to help me launch my school which is a castle. So we're going to be taking
Oh,
kids off.
that is the. Does
That's
that
the
exist right
school.
now, or what? You're
Yeah,
building it?
we're going to build this, and it's going to be taking
It's
kids
in
off the
Belize.
streets and having them raised in Belize in a castle. So it's a trade school, but it's also got the best education you could imagine, modeled off of the Khan Academy, which when kids have to learn something, history, science, math, and science was like nonsensical to me. I probably the problem was my teacher was German and spoke with a German accent, and I really didn't understand what the heck he was saying.
That reminds me when I was in. Oh my God, I can't imagine. I'm 53 now, so I'm imagining like when I was in third grade or fifth grade, and my Spanish teacher was speaking with a heavy Southern accent, and I learned
Um,
nothing. She goes,
well,
"Oh," and she's just dragging in her, Southern, and there's nothing wrong with Southern accent, but when you're teaching Spanish and you're not, and you don't have a Southern accent, it was just so wrong. It's
yeah,
like,
well, he
I'm
also
sure
taught
people
Spanish.
speak Spanish don't speak like that.
No, but imagine a German accent trying to teach Spanish to high school kids.
Oh my goodness.
It's like, what are they thinking? But it was, so I want these kids to learn to love to learn, to be really
Yeah,
engaged in the education. And by the
yeah.
time they graduate high school, they're going to have the equivalent of a college education. They're going to know what they like because they're going to work in every one of the 22 divisions. So working with agriculture, with the livestock,
Hmm.
in manufacturing, in construction. They're going to
Hmm.
learn to cook gourmet meals. They're going to learn to make their own clothing. Everything that it takes to be completely self sustainable, every
Hmm.
child is going to learn to be able to take care of themselves and to have the financial wherewithal, the knowledge how to create wealth by the
Hmm.
time they're 18. So
Wow.
it's just a completely different way of looking at education. So I'm actually going to be launching this school in 21 countries in 10 years. So
Okay.
I looked at the number of countries that have homeless children, the highest percentages. You would not believe, because I was shocked, the
Hmm.
United States is 22nd from the top, the highest country having
Hmm.
a percentage of children who are homeless. We have 700,000 children living on the streets without an adult to provide for them or protect them. They don't know where they're sleeping tonight. They do not know where their next meal is coming from.
Hmm.
This is a true disaster that's been ignored, and we have
Yeah.
to do something about it.
I think um, I would agree with you. And I think having a school or whatever that gave them experience with a trade that wouldn't dissolve, with all the AI stuff, you already know what trades are going to make it.
Yeah,
Electrician, plumbers, they're going to be making the most amount of money, you know.
right.
And I don't know all of it, but that AI is taking over a lot of stuff. And so
Any
if you,
service position will be gone. It's all going to be AI. So
yeah,
you won't have people at the hotel desk, the front desk. You might have somebody on a line
or
that you
else
can
it'll be
call.
drastically reduced, you know,
Right,
and,
right.
and a lot of
I
that
mean,
stuff.
look,
And people are
they
wondering what are they going to do for work.
right. They even have now one of the Wendy's here in Tennessee does all AI. It's all robot,
Is
no
the food
people.
any better?
I don't think so.
Oh, okay.
I don't think it's. I didn't
Nowadays,
try it.
restaurants
I'm
are
not
terrible
a
anyway.
Yeah, I'm not a
Well,
fast food fan, but
yeah,
imagine even those jobs that the kids count on to be able to pay their way through college, they're
yeah.
going to go away. So what are we going to do? We have to come up with alternatives to be able to help kids. So I found a couple of investment programs where I can actually put $25 into an investment. And 3 years later, there's more than enough money there to be able to put these kids through college.
Is that the mechanism you're using for other people to help?
Not really. It's it's one of those things, and I have to be very careful about this because, when something's really good,
Hmm.
people who don't do as well go out of their way to make it go away.
Oh yeah, if it's providing, if it's blocking their agendas, in other words.
Yes, right.
Yeah,
So,
yeah, yeah. So you don't have
so
to tell me,
the
but I guess the reason for me asking is that if you're building this, obviously you're going to ask for support, and so I guess maybe a better question would be is how can people support this? Because I just they're not just homelessness. There's all these other things like trafficking and stuff
oh,
that happens around that because they don't have a choice. I don't know much about. I live in Las Vegas. I don't know much about it. I just recently moved, but from Atlanta, so Atlanta has some similarities. And here, what I noticed was much different was the amount of homelessness. And if you have homelessness of certain age and type of people, a lot of them will get into things like prostitution or stealing or things that are illegal
they're
that are
actually
destroying everyone's
kidnapped.
lives.
They're actually kidnapped and put into sex trade. So,
Oh, okay.
I mean, this is, like somebody comes
So
along, it used
so
to be the
that
white.
what you're doing now would be an avenue to getting out of that situation and being self-sufficient. And there's a
Right,
whole empowerment with that. Yeah. So how
right.
can people like support what you're doing? Should they contact you on an individual level, or do you
Yeah,
have
individual works really well. My LinkedIn profile is here.
yeah,
I
let me share the
prefer,
screen on that. And if I know what buttons to push. And this, oh no, this is my profile. This is your profile. All right. So what we'll do at the end of this is we'll drop Sharon's profile here. And Sharon, I do have a suggestion, two suggestions from looking at this. Add your booking link here so they can go ahead and book some time with you. And then on your Ultimate Business International, are you in control of this?
yes.
So create a company page. And if you have created a company page, attach it back to it where it has an icon.
Okay,
But those are the two
perfect.
things
Thank
because
you.
yeah, people need to contact you and they may try to connect you. Sometimes it's easier just to grab 20 minutes and have a conversation on this. You know.
The challenge is I am so booked. You know,
Oh, well,
I'm just like
well, there has to
overbooked.
be an
And
avenue of contacting you direct, like on
yeah,
mine
well, the
there.
connect works really well, um, and people
Yeah.
do contact me on Facebook as well. But
Oh, Facebook's a big one too. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
How do I stop screen? There you go.
Yeah, so this is really interesting. I'd like to challenge anybody to go out into your community and look around and see that kids are hanging out together. One of the giveaways is that the kids are wearing pajamas. Those are typically homeless children, especially now. It's cold and they shouldn't be in pajamas. Um, Go find a resource where you can get coats, blankets, and help these kids out. At least give them something so that they can be warm. If you can, provide a meal for them. You
Mhm.
can buy a gift card at Wendy's has one of the more healthy hamburgers.
Mhm.
Kids really do appreciate it.
Yeah.
Um,
I'll
and
tell you
if
what
you
I
can,
do, and I'm very cautious as a parent. My daughter's 9, and she has some special needs, so I'm very careful. So I never let her out of my sight. And but she likes going to Chipotle because we can get a $5 kids combo, and I'll get the kids combo because I'm kind of overweight anyway. And so I'll get that and build your own, have steak on it for $5. I'm good. And but I always know that there's homeless around there, and they always ask me for money. I don't give money. I don't carry money, which Vegas is a cash, but I haven't carried money in years. But what I will do is offer them, something to eat right away. and just be extremely respectful because everyone, is going through stuff. Sometimes I notice that, some people, they're just angry at the world, uh, and there was one time where I did that in another place. They ate the food and threw it in the street. And I'm like, well, that's one reason people don't want to talk to you because you're just, and so I think that you should always be respectful towards other people and help them where you can. But you should also be very cognitive of not being, taken advantage of or robbed and things like that. So you have to have, I think certain people don't have situational awareness, so
Yeah.
you may want to like help someone and then you get robbed or something like that, and so I think that, like you said, the signs, if you notice, if it's a child or teenager and they look like they're not wearing clothes appropriately and they're hanging out where they shouldn't, like they're out in the streets and stuff, they're in the corner or whatever, they obviously could use some help. I think another thing too is, and I'm just thinking of ideas, if you go to like the, what is that called? Burlington, the coat factory, or
Right.
Ross. Yeah, those two places have really good deals on clothes. And
Right.
it would be a great idea to, like you said, purchase a jacket or two. And that way they would have something, that would be helpful to them, just, on the survival. But I do also think that foster care and the programs, they don't, I think the schools do a good job, but I don't think the governments do a good job, in my
But
opinion.
you have to know that foster care kicks kids out at 15. They just show them
How?
the door, and
At
there's
15?
no at 15, and they have nowhere else to go. So
Yeah.
they're out on the streets by themselves at 15 years old.
Oh, so that's kind of the high 15 to 18-ish is a high
And those
risk.
are the kids
Oh,
we're taking. Yeah. Because these kids need a break. It's not their fault.
yeah,
A lot of these kids, I met one young man, he wouldn't tell me why, but he had been homeless since he was 12.
yeah.
And I met him in San Francisco, and he had gained an interest in agriculture, and he would go to communities and show people how to develop their own community gardens.
Mhm,
And he would ask people to donate. They had a guitar box, and
mhm.
I threw in a few bucks, and I just said, okay, now I want to talk to you. And so he explained his whole story, and he had been around the world. He'd
Oh,
been to, I can't even tell you how many countries, helping people create their own community gardens. So these kids, they just need a break.
yeah.
Another young boy went home after school at 12 years old, and his mother didn't tell him where she moved with her boyfriend. Yeah, I
You know,
mean,
I know personally. I've been married and divorced. I have grown kids, and my daughter now. I really didn't know she existed until she was 2. I suspected, but I couldn't get the DNA stuff. The mother got in trouble, and then she ended up getting remarried to the ex-husband, then then got deported. And I don't know the details,
oh,
but so the husband was trying to get money out of me, and so I just showed up and had him sign some paperwork and took my, because my daughter, after, of course, I did all
yeah,
the
he didn't
stuff.
have rights to her, sure.
Well, there's all these legal stuff that are issues. Like, so I don't want to get into too much, but I can't even put her on my taxes because I need lawyers to pay for like state paperwork and all that stuff. And so you run into a lot of like, to be a good parent, sometimes it takes a lot of energy and it takes resources to do that. And so I commend anyone just trying to help out other individuals. And the other thing I would say is that, um, why are kids homeless? Like the foundational stuff. So you are helping them once they're on the street, but there should be ways to prevent. And I think here in the States, and I don't know, but I think that things like single parenthood or single mothers and stuff, it's harder to raise a child. And so
Sure.
things like that happen where they have to put in foster care. They can't do that themselves and stuff. And divorce is so easy, or people leaving, or even on the other side of the coin where you can, the man is forced to pay child support and he can't even see his kid. So there's a lot of issues like that. So I think there's a family structure problem that we have in the Western style of living, where everyone wants to live free and they don't. And I
Without
always
responsibility.
without responsible. And I always explain, when you get married, why'd you get married? Because we love each other. That's not the reason to get married. The reason to get married is to be selfless because you're having a family. The family is more important than you. And I don't think those things are taught. I think
No, not at
no,
all.
there's
Not
no
at all.
divorce, there's no fault divorce, and there's all this other stuff. So I think most people get divorced or separate or whatever the case. I don't think marriage is for everyone, but I uh, I think people are not taking responsibility. They just have the easy way out.
Well,
And
and it could be part of the way they were raised. They weren't taught that kind of responsibility. They didn't have parents who acted like that. And, but when you have a child, that becomes 100% your responsibility.
that is your
It's
responsibility, not just your responsibility. It's more important than you. Because
yeah,
the way I think about
exactly.
it, you've already you're already an adult. You've grown, and this little person is something that it's kind of like it's a form of immortality. It's just like a little you, and
Right.
then you realize that that person is more important to you because you've already made your mistakes and lived your life to a certain point. This person needs a chance to do better, you know.
Exactly.
And I can't believe it's just how and maybe it's just me, but it seems like a lot of people are a little selfish in that, and the kids suffer.
Yes, but that's kind of what's happened in our culture is that people have been taught that it's okay to be selfish. It's all about me. It's I want mine now. This is a fast-paced society. I want my food now. I want, whatever I want. I want it now. And
Hmm.
what they have done is they've taken the heart out of
Hmm.
it. So when people care about other people and your heart is invested in another person, it brings a joy that nothing else can compare to. And you know what that's like with your daughter. You know what it's like with your other children.
Hmm.
So most often when kids are disconnected from their parents because we created this whole society where both parents have to work to survive, so they
Hmm.
don't have a heartfelt connection with their children. The children are
Yeah,
being raised without
there's
that.
separation because of lack of resources.
Right,
Because back in the earlier days, let's look at just the resource problem. Back in the early days, the father alone typically had enough money to pay for the whole family, right? That's just
right.
not a normal thing anymore. And so
Well, it's impossible anymore. I mean, people
it's
have to
very
have two incomes.
improbable. It's very improbable. It's
Yeah,
not impossible, but it's improbable. And so if look at it at the income level, say the house was uh, $50,000 back then, right? Whenever it then was, right? Well, your average salary was half the amount of the house. That's middle income.
right.
So if I made 25,000 and the house was 100,000, no, if I made in the house was 50,000, that's the measurement of what I consider. So nowadays, an average house is about 500,000, like not a mansion, like the
Just normal, everyday
normal
neighborhood.
mid, not too low, not too, the mid range house to purchase is about, it was like right under 500,000 about 6 months ago. So I would assume that it's around 500, either that or a little more. How many normal people actually take home $250,000 a year. So if you're making 250K a year, you're really middle income. I don't care what the government says, because
Right.
it depends on your purchasing power. 15 years ago, I had a company, my gamification company. My highest year was under 1 million, and then I had a salary, a part of it, and it was like 100,000. I forgot what it was. Right, whatever it was, the buying power was more than 250. It was much more than it is now, right? So you have to think that, wow, what are we doing to do that stuff? So yeah, and so I would think that that would keep people together even more. But if for some reason there's more divorce and more separation, than
The
ever before.
stress, and people are not taught how to communicate with each other. So the
Mhm,
stress builds, and then one says, I've had enough. I can't deal with this level of stress every day.
mhm,
It's there's never enough money, there's not enough food, the kids need clothes, insurance is expensive, somebody got sick. You know, People aren't taught how to handle these everyday challenges.
mhm.
And when you have a child, it's not like you're thinking, oh my goodness, if this child used to cost 100,000 to get them to the college level, it's over 200,000 to get kids to the level of entering college. Now you have to think about paying for college. They
Mhm.
have never learned how to do
They can't
investments
even pay their own
to,
bills. How they
you
gonna
know,
afford college? Yeah,
right. So
it's tough.
there are ways of doing it. Like, a simple thing. You have a house payment. You
Yeah.
pay
Mhm,
it on the first of the month.
mhm,
On the 15th of the month, you pay half of next month. It's not any more money out of your pocket because on next month, the first, you're going to pay half of the payment. Then
mhm.
on the 15th of January, you pay the half of February. That reduces your house payments from 30 to 15 years
Mm.
because that 2-week window is paying down on the principal. You
Yeah, and
can
that's
do
the
that with
majority of the payments for the first 5 or 10 of the year, whatever.
20. 20 years is
Well, I
interest.
think the majority of it, well, that's cars, but maybe houses are the same. The majority of the payments only go to pay the interest and not the principal for
Exactly.
X amount of years. So it's
Right.
like
So
paying into a black
you
hole. It's
right,
crazy.
you can circumvent that. You can do it with credit cards, you can do car payments, you can do any installment payment. You just pay half of next month on the 15th of this month,
Mhm,
and that will reduce your payment
mhm.
by at least half of the number of
I'll tell
years you would
you
have to
this.
pay.
I think that people need to know what sacrifice is, and they need to get with people that that are actually good for them, not just who is enticing them for the moment. I'll tell you this: in my life, I have dated some beautiful women, but I was an idiot. You know, I'll tell you right now, they were way too
So,
young for me. I was a good guy actually in trying to make it work. It's a futile attempt. Very, very naive of me because I didn't like jumping around from a lot of women. But it was impossible because it was just me giving. And so I think there's a style of selfishness, and then we're all selfish in a certain way. I think you should be selfish, like you should have your ice cream, but maybe here, not like I eat ice cream everywhere. You know what I mean? So it's
right,
okay,
right.
but you have to see the big picture of it. And so me personally, I went through a lot of trauma just because I was hanging out with the wrong people. Like even friends. Like I used to do business, and a lot of times they would go to like the bars or the strip club or bikini clubs or whatever. And if they asked me where I wanted to go, I wanted to go to the cheapest place because when I go there, I look like money, and I get just too much. It's just like I'm not trying to spend money on. I'm just so I go to a place with the cheapest drinks where they keep their clothes on. And so I say I just want to enjoy like 45 minutes, talk with the guys, do some business and stuff. And so that's my limit, you know. I think that's okay to do, to get out. But what I did not like was that if I if I understand that if they're married and they're trying to cheat on their wives or something like that with, with the the person giving the drinks or whatever, I don't want to do business with them, because if they're going to cheat on them, they're going to cheat on me with my
Right.
business.
It tells you the lack of character that they have. And
You have to be on the same page with
yeah,
a lot of those things, and you have to have the same moral structure. Like for me, I don't really care so much. I'm not a, like, I don't care so much about your lifestyle. I really care about how you treat other people.
right.
So I've met people in like a poly situation, and it's a great guy, like, and he treats everyone well, and everyone's happy. And I was like, oh, that works for him. I met other ones, a traditional, and a really great guy, and I like the family unit, and that's so important. And so I admire stuff like that, but I don't see that all that stuff very often. And I think is and it's really, I think it comes down to that foundational, like, well, if someone didn't have a father and they grew up with a mother, they're going to be deficient in certain things, like
Exactly.
emotional, like a single mother has a much harder time raising a boy, especially if she's angry at the father or whatever the case may be. And so there's certain things that it's just harder for one person to do, and especially
Right.
for a woman to hold all that stuff on her own. I know certain things. I don't have a problem raising kids, but I'm a more traditional guy. I'm like, if my daughters do something, I just correct her right away. I don't care what people think. I like show her the right way to do stuff or how to wear clothes. You know what I mean? Um, my thing is for her safety. And so I think men have an easier time in that respect, of like the authority of controlling that stuff in order, so they kind of grow up a little healthier. And I think that if you didn't grow up with, say, a father, or have a really positive father figure, um, I've noticed the emotional intelligence of that man suffers because they
Sure.
don't know how to deal with the feelings, or they're a little more emotional than they should. Like, there's a reason men and women are different. They offer different
Absolutely.
benefits. Yeah.
But think about this, and I'm pretty sure the first person who ever said it out loud, but it's been used since. You have to take a test to drive a car, but no test to have a child. Which is more important?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't think people should even vote when they're 18. I think we're like complete idiots until men, I think, are generally, most of us are really stupid until we hit 30. Like, we're dumb as bricks. Like, and I think women, they probably start developing faster, but I would catch her at 26, and so that's my opinion. Like, we're complete morons, and we're drinking and we're voting for stuff, and we're having kids,
Yeah.
and all this stuff. And like, I remember when I was first married, my wife, she was not very aware of how to handle kids. And so when our son had a fever, she put him near a window. I'm like, are you insane? I'm like,
Oh my God.
they don't know. If you don't know, you don't know. Or or they may have certain, and and you just think like, and it's not the fact that anyone's like, I don't want to use the word, like, they're not stupid. It's just that they may have brought up
So
with certain ideals
they,
that they just have to
yeah, they
learn.
just haven't had the experience. So, you know, just because a mother has a child doesn't mean that they raise a child that will be able to come into society and to have a life that is to their liking.
Hmm.
So parents have to have the skills right?
Hmm.
Now, today, there's no excuse. You can go to the library free. You can read books. There's audio at the library. You can learn parenting skills.
Hmm.
But most people are so busy surviving that they don't even think twice about, I just do the
Oh,
best I
that's so
can.
true. That's so true that they don't. So survival is the most important thing, and then the second thing is finding a home. If they don't have a home, they don't have a mental. Why would you expect them to have any mental stability?
Right,
It's very difficult if you're just looking like, oh, you can be so great. Like I can't even, I can't even eat. So I can. They have to get those things covered so they can
right,
formulate ideas and they have some. The cup is they can empty some of their cup out because once your cup is full, it's full, and then you need to dump out the bad stuff. And so you can fill it
well,
in with more good stuff.
people just need to know that they do have choices, and maybe they can't do it on their own. But there's churches in every single community, and
Mhm.
churches have groups, organizations, and even people who will help get somebody through a tough time.
I'll tell you what really helped me out. So I had a lot of trauma, but then my trauma was some self-inflicted by my choices, but some of it was normal stuff. Midlife crisis. That's when you have family members who die and stuff like that. It's very traumatic, or you have bad relationships, and that can reflect negatively on your business or your personal life, or when someone has really have done stuff to really hurt you. You put your heart into whatever it is, business or relationship. But things that helped me out, to be honest, was my daughter. A sense of being in something that's more important than me. The other thing that helped me out was a few good friends, and some I've never met. Some I met through LinkedIn. Um, some, and then family, and then my my cultural identity. So of course I'm American, but my brother's Filipino, and here in Vegas there's a good Asian community. If I was not Filipino, I would have not got a great deal on this place, to be honest with you. Because in Vegas, you can say, "Oh, for $2,000, you can find a crack house." You don't, you know what I mean? It could be really bad. But here, I found a place that's safe, is gated, is brand new. It's not huge; it's very small, but it's all I need, and that's
Right,
really because of the cultural community too. And so that's one thing I think that a lot of Americans miss. They don't. That's what you mentioned, churches.
right.
But I was very lucky that, oh, my brother knows someone, he knows someone, they vouch for me and stuff. So I've lowered my expenses. So I purposely lowered all my expenses to build my software because that's my dream. My dream was to build. I don't have $200,000 in my pocket to create a software, so I had to create it and be inventive. And one of the ways to do it was lower my cost of living. And so I moved from Atlanta to Vegas, and I had those opportunities. And so I think that people need to be cognitive of seeing these opportunities.
Yeah, there's choices they can make. Like one couple that I met when I was speaking in San Francisco, they both lost their jobs in the restaurant industry.
Hmm.
And I told them they could move, I'm going to say 2 hours from San Francisco inland,
Hmm.
and they could get a house for less than they were paying 1,800 a month for a two-bedroom apartment with three kids.
Yeah.
They ended up not only moving out there, but they got a house for 1,200 a month that was a three-bedroom, two
hmm
bath, and they got jobs that were less than 10% of what they used to earn in San Francisco.
So they're better off.
Much better
Thousand
off.
percent. Yeah.
Yeah. And the kids have an environment that they can live a lot more freely outdoors in a more country environment. You don't have to live in a city to survive. There's just so many things that people give up by thinking that they have to be in this chaos all the time.
Well, it's good that you bring that up, because a lot of people, and this is a normal human thing, actually. If they're stressed for survival, you could tell them something, but they really don't hear it or understand it or believe it because they may have heard this or that, and they're just getting consumed by, just surviving and sometimes worthless information. And so they have to understand that they trust you with your information. And the same thing with consulting. So I build a lot of sales systems for clients and stuff like that. If they don't believe me, it doesn't matter how good I am. They'll never work with
Well,
me.
the thing that I
Believe.
really appreciated about that is the father was so concerned about the safety of his children that he was willing to be able to make that kind of move. I mean, that is a huge transition for a lot of people,
Hmm.
but if you're willing to pick up and move out. My father was
Hmm.
working at St. Luke's Hospital in San Francisco. That's where I was born.
Hmm.
And 2 years later, still in San Francisco, he saw a little boy get hit by a milk truck. And when he went to the hospital, he had to take care of that little boy. And my dad had us packed up in 1 week, and we moved up to Mendocino, which is 2.5 hours north of San Francisco. He
Hmm.
said, "My kids will not be raised in a city like that."
Yeah, yeah. You
So
have you
people,
have you have to understand that there's an opportunity, and of course, the tipping point for most people is the pain is harder to stay the same. And if the pain is so bad, and there's an opportunity to relieve that pain, and this is in life and in business,
right?
this, and so like if I have a client, the pain is so great that the money they pay or whatever the sacrifice they give me, the reward, they have to see a 10x conversion rate. So it's like, so you're at the point where we can't, but here I have my family, I have peace, I have a house, I have a place to live, and then we're not only going to pay the bills, we're going to eat well, and my family or the schools may be better or whatever the case may be. And so they
They're
say,
more personalized. Yeah. When you get out of the city, the schools become focused on the kids and not on government regulations.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm so sorry. We kind of went on a tangent a little bit, but this was a great conversation, and we kind of went way over the time. But what I will say to everyone else is, please reach out to Sharon, and I'm going to share her page again here. And it's, if you go to LinkedIn and you just type in Sharon Abbott, Abbott, she should come up, and it should look like this. And here's the URL, and I'll put the link in there. Feel free to connect with her. And also feel free to connect with me if you want to talk about strategy systems or interest in Scoop. Scoop is super affordable. Take a look at that. And then what I will say to you, Sharon, probably what I will do afterwards is give you a link for Scoop and give it a try. And if you need
Sure.
any help, like systems on LinkedIn, let's just have another conversation, and I can show you how it's structured a little bit and maybe spark some ideas. I'm always open to help. And LinkedIn has over 1 billion people, and 12.5% of those people are on it daily. So there is something to use, and there's multiple channels that can happen. But you have such a fierce vision of all these things helping the youth off the streets. I think that connecting with the right people may help you out.
Thank you. I really appreciate that, Troy. It's been a lot of fun.
Yep. Thank you very much. And I'll go ahead and drop off now. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I appreciate it.